The golden cage, the notification lit up Victoria Ashford's phone at precisely 11:43 on a Tuesday morning. She was reviewing quarterly reports in her home office, a converted library that overlooked the fog-draped streets of Pacific Heights, when the device buzzed against the mahogany desk. It wasn't the buzz itself that caught her attention. Marcus had always been a prolific texter, his phone an extension of his restless ambition, but rather the preview of words that appeared on the locked screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. Wear that black dress I bought you." The message wasn't for her. Victoria knew this immediately because she didn't own a black dress Marcus had purchased recently. Her wardrobe was her own domain, carefully curated over 2 decades of refined taste. She set down her reading glasses and unlocked the phone with the passcode she'd known for years. Marcus had never been cautious about such things. He believed his world was impenetrable, that his wife was too consumed with charity boards and museum committees to ever look deeper. He was catastrophically wrong. The message thread told a story that would have broken a different woman. Celeste Monroe, 26 years old, 3 million followers on social media, and apparently the recipient of Marcus's attention for the past 8 months. Victoria scrolled through the exchanges with the detached curiosity of a researcher examining data. There were photos, Celeste in various states of undress, Marcus's responses crude and eager. There were promises of trips to Bali, mentions of a downtown apartment, references to jewelry that Victoria now realized had been charged to accounts she'd stopped monitoring years ago. She placed the phone back on the desk exactly as she'd found it. Her hands were steady. Her breathing remained even. 20 years of marriage, 16 of them good, 4 of them gradually deteriorating into this moment. She'd suspected, of course. The late meetings that smelled of perfume not her own, the sudden interest in upgrading his wardrobe, the way his eyes would drift to his phone. During dinner with an urgency that business never quite warranted. But suspicion and confirmation were different creatures. Entirely. Victoria stood and walked to the window. The city sprawled beneath her, a kingdom built on innovation and disruption. Marcus loved to use those words. He'd built Ashford Digital Systems from a small startup into a $3 billion empire, and he'd done it, he often told reporters, through fearless risk-taking and refusing to accept limitations. What he rarely mentioned was that Victoria had been there from the beginning. She'd left her position as a senior analyst at Goldman Sachs to help him draft the business plan that secured their first venture capital funding. She'd worked 18-hour days alongside him, her financial acumen complementing his technical vision. Then came the children, Thomas and Rebecca, now away at college. Marcus had suggested she step back, focus on family. It made sense at the time. One of them needed to be present, and his star was rising so quickly. So she'd become the perfect wife, the gracious hostess, the woman who could navigate a donor dinner with the same skills she'd once applied to mergers and acquisitions. She'd told herself it was temporary, that she'd return to her career when the time was right. The time had never been right. And now, apparently, she'd become expendable. Victoria returned to the desk and opened her laptop. She created a new folder, encrypted and password protected. Then she began methodically screenshotting every message in the thread, organizing them by date. She checked their bank accounts, the personal ones, not the ones Marcus thought she didn't know about. She found the apartment lease. She found the jewelry purchases. She found plane tickets and hotel reservations that coincided with supposed business trips. She worked through lunch, her mind sharp and focused. This wasn't heartbreak she was feeling. It was something far more dangerous. It was clarity. By 3 o'clock, she'd compiled a preliminary dossier. But she didn't confront Marcus when he came home that evening, didn't throw his phone at him or demand explanations. Instead, she smiled when he kissed her cheek, asked about his day, and listened as he complained about difficult investors and demanding clients. She played the role she'd perfected over 2 decades because Victoria Ashford understood something that Marcus, for all his genius, had never quite grasped. Revenge wasn't about emotion. It wasn't about screaming or tears or dramatic confrontations. Revenge was about strategy, patience, and waiting for your opponent to make the fatal mistake that would cost them everything. She didn't have to wait long. 2 weeks later, Marcus made the announcement over dinner. "The Tech Titans Gala is next month," he said, cutting into his steak with the casual confidence of a man who believed himself invincible. "I'm bringing Celeste Monroe as our brand consultant. She'll help us reach younger demographics." Victoria took a sip of wine, her expression perfectly neutral. "Of course," she said. "Whatever you think is best for the company." The shattered illusion. The Fairmont Hotel ballroom had been transformed into a cathedral of silicon ambition. Crystal chandeliers worth more than most houses cast prismatic light across marble floors, while tech industry titans mingled beneath towering displays showcasing the year's most disruptive innovations. This was the Tech Titans Gala, where billion-dollar deals were whispered over champagne and reputations were built or demolished with a single well-placed conversation. Marcus Ashford arrived at 7:15 in a midnight blue Tom Ford suit, his silver hair styled to perfection. On his arm was Celeste Monroe, draped in a dress so tight and so sheer it left absolutely nothing to the imagination. The fabric, if it could be called that, was gold mesh encrusted with crystals, and it caught every light, every camera flash, every scandalized stare as they made their entrance. The photographers went into a frenzy. Marcus had always commanded attention, but this was different. This was spectacle. Celeste posed with the practiced precision of someone who'd spent years perfecting her angles, her lips pouty, her hand possessively gripping Marcus's arm. She'd posted about tonight to her 3 million followers hours ago, building anticipation with cryptic hints about her exciting new business venture with a tech legend. "Mr. Ashford. Is this the new face of Ashford Digital?" a reporter shouted. Marcus grinned, that wolfish expression that had graced magazine covers from Forbes to Wired. "Celeste is helping us connect with the next generation. Sometimes you need fresh blood to stay ahead of disruption." The double meaning wasn't lost on anyone. Whispers rippled through the press line. Where was Victoria? Was this an official separation? How long had this been going on? Marcus seemed to feed on the attention, pulling Celeste closer as they navigated the gauntlet of flashing cameras. He'd always believed that rules were suggestions for lesser mortals. He was Marcus Ashford. He'd revolutionized cloud computing. He'd turned algorithms into gold. If he wanted to replace his aging wife with a woman half her age, who could stop him? He was about to find out. 20 minutes after Marcus's entrance, a sleek black Tesla pulled up to the hotel's entrance. The door opened and Victoria Ashford emerged like a force of nature wrapped in silk. Her gown was sapphire blue, the exact shade of her eyes, cut with architectural precision that spoke of old money and timeless elegance. No desperate grab for youth, no transparent fabric or strategic cutouts. Just pure, devastating sophistication. Around her neck hung a single strand of South Sea pearls that had belonged to her grandmother, a woman who'd built a shipping empire when women weren't supposed to build anything at all. Victoria's dark hair, silvered elegantly at the temples, was swept into a flawless chignon. She wore no wedding ring. She'd removed it the morning after Marcus's announcement and placed it in a safe deposit box alongside documents he would soon wish had never existed. The cameras that had been trained on Marcus and Celeste swiveled with military precision. The energy shifted, contracted, then exploded. This was a different kind of story now. Not a scandal, but a war. Victoria walked alone. She didn't hurry, didn't look left or right at the photographers shouting her name. She simply moved with the unhurried confidence of someone who owned the ground beneath her feet. When she reached the entrance, she paused, turned slightly toward the cameras, and offered the faintest smile. Not bitter, not wounded, knowing. Inside the ballroom, Marcus had cornered Douglas Chen, the venture capitalist whose firm controlled the largest stake in Ashford Digital outside of Marcus's own shares. He was in the middle of an animated pitch about expanding into artificial intelligence when he felt the room's atmosphere change. Conversations faltered. Heads turned. Even the string quartet seemed to soften their playing. He turned and saw her. Victoria was making her way through the crowd, but she wasn't heading toward him. She was stopping at clusters of board members, investors, and industry leaders. Everywhere she paused, faces lit up. Hands were shaken. Cheeks were kissed. She spoke quietly, intimately, and whatever she said seemed to captivate her audience completely. The perfect execution. The sun rose over San Francisco Bay with the kind of crystalline clarity that made the city look deceptively peaceful. Victoria Ashford stood on her balcony, watching the light paint the Golden Gate Bridge in shades of amber and rose, a cup of green tea warming her hands. She'd slept deeply for the first time in months, the sleep of someone who'd finally set down a heavy burden. Her phone had been buzzing since 5:30. She'd ignored it, savoring these last quiet moments before the storm broke completely. But at 6:45, she finally picked it up and began scrolling through the notifications. The first headlines had started appearing at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, carefully coordinated with her team's timeline. TechCrunch. Ashford Digital faces leadership crisis as embezzlement allegations surface. The Wall Street Journal. Victoria Ashford partners with Nexus Technologies. In stunning industry move, Bloomberg. How a scorned wife became Silicon Valley's most dangerous player. But it was the Financial Times piece that captured it perfectly. The Ashford implosion. When arrogance meets accountability. Victoria opened her laptop to the secure folder she'd been building for months. Everything was there, meticulously documented and verified by 3 independent forensic accounting firms. Marcus had been using company funds to bankroll Celeste's Lifestyle, the downtown apartment. Listed as a marketing office, the private jet trips categorized as brand. Consultation travel, the jewelry and designer. Clothes expensed as promotional materials. In total, he'd diverted over $2.7 million of shareholder money into his affair. It would have been almost impossible to catch if Victoria hadn't been the one who'd designed Ashford Digital's original financial systems. She knew where every body was buried because she'd helped dig the graves, metaphorically speaking, back when they were building the company together. She'd kept her access credentials active through a consulting arrangement that Marcus had signed without reading, too busy to care about what his wife did with her time. Her second phone, the encrypted one that only 3 people had the number to, vibrated. She answered on the first ring. "It's done," said Gregory Blackwell, CEO of Nexus Technologies and Marcus's largest competitor. His voice carried the satisfied tone of a man who'd just been handed his rival's head on a silver platter. The announcement went live 20 minutes ago. "We're calling it a strategic partnership. You'll be heading our new financial oversight division with stock options that'll make you very wealthy in your own right." "And the other matter?" Victoria asked. "The board received your documentation at 6 this morning. I've been told that Marcus arrived at headquarters 40 minutes ago to find his keycard deactivated and security waiting to escort him to an emergency meeting. They're voting on his removal as CEO within the hour. It's a formality at this point. No one wants to go down with this ship." Victoria closed her eyes, let herself feel the weight of it. 20 years of marriage, 16 of them built on genuine partnership and love, 4 of them watching that foundation crack and crumble. She hadn't wanted this. But Marcus had made his choices, and those choices had consequences. "Thank you, Gregory. I'll see you Monday to sign the contracts." She ended the call and immediately received another. Her attorney, Patricia Fieldstone, sounded almost gleeful. "Victoria, darling, you're a genius. Marcus's lawyers are already calling, trying to negotiate. They know they have nothing. The prenuptial agreement you insisted on updating 5 years ago, the one with the morality and fiduciary responsibility clauses, means you're entitled to 60% of all marital assets, plus damages. We're looking at somewhere north of $400 million. I don't want his money, Patricia. I want what I earned. Calculate my contributions to Ashford Digital from the beginning, my work hours, my strategic planning, my financial projections. Invoice it at market rate for a senior consultant over 20 years. Whatever that number is, that's what I'll take." There was a pause. "Victoria, that's significantly less than what you're entitled to." "I know, but I'm not interested in being vindictive. I'm interested in being right. Everything documented, everything justified, nothing he can claim was spite or revenge. Just a businesswoman collecting her fee. You're remarkable, you know that?" Victoria smiled. "I learned from my grandmother. She used to say that revenge is a fool's game, but justice is divine." By 9 o'clock, her children had both called. Thomas, her eldest, was furious on her behalf. Rebecca, always more measured, asked if her mother was okay. Victoria assured them both that she was better than okay, that she was finally free. The news coverage throughout the day was relentless. Cameras camped outside Ashford Digital headquarters captured Marcus's departure at 11:30, his face ashen, his legendary confidence shattered. The board had voted unanimously to remove him as CEO, citing breach of fiduciary duty and conduct unbecoming of company leadership. His personal assets were frozen pending a full audit. The Securities and Exchange Commission had already announced an investigation. Celeste Monroe's social media accounts went dark by noon, deleted entirely by 2 o'clock. She'd posted one final message. Sometimes you don't know the full story. The comments had been savage. She'd thought she was climbing into a throne. Instead, she'd climbed into a trap that had been set months before she'd even met Marcus Ashford. By late afternoon, Victoria received a call from an unfamiliar number. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of her. "Victoria!" Marcus's voice was hoarse, defeated. "Can we talk?" "Please." She walked back out to her balcony, watched the fog beginning its evening roll across the bay. "There's nothing to discuss, Marcus. You made your choices. I made mine. You destroyed me. 20 years of marriage and you destroyed everything we built." "No," Victoria said, her voice calm but firm. "You destroyed what we built. I simply refused to go down with the ship. There's a difference. I loved you. You loved what I provided. Stability, respectability, a partner who made you look good while you took all the credit. But love? Real love involves respect, Marcus. It involves seeing your partner as an equal, not an accessory to be upgraded when a newer model catches your eye." She could hear him breathing on the other end. Could picture him in whatever hotel room or friend's apartment he'd retreated to, his empire crumbling around him. "What happens now?" he asked finally. "Now, you face the consequences of your actions. The SEC investigation will run its course. The board will install new leadership. You'll likely settle the embezzlement charges to avoid criminal prosecution. Patricia tells me the evidence is overwhelming. And I move forward with my life. With Nexus. With Blackwell. You're joining my biggest competitor. I'm joining a company that values my expertise and is willing to compensate me fairly. That it happens to be your competitor is simply efficient." There was a long silence. Then, "I underestimated you." "Yes," Victoria said simply. "You did. That was your fatal mistake." She ended the call and blocked the number. That evening, Victoria Ashford sat in her home office, the same room where she'd first discovered Marcus's betrayal, and she drafted an email to her children. In it, she explained that sometimes the hardest thing in life is recognizing when something you've built with love and effort has become toxic. That walking away, or in her case, strategically dismantling what had become a prison, wasn't weakness. It was strength. She told them that she hoped they would never have to make the choices she'd made, but that if they did, she hoped they would remember that their worth wasn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. That dignity wasn't about never falling, it was about how you rose. Then she closed her laptop, poured herself a glass of wine from a bottle she'd been saving for a special occasion, and she toasted the empty room. "To new beginnings," she said aloud, "and to never again making myself small for someone else's comfort." Outside, the city lights began to twinkle as darkness fell. Somewhere in that glittering sprawl, Marcus Ashford was learning what it meant to fall from grace. But Victoria wasn't thinking about him anymore. She was thinking about Monday morning, about walking into Nexus Technologies not as someone's wife, but as herself. Just herself. And that, she realized, was more than enough. The Sapphire vengeance was complete. Not with explosions or melodrama, but with precision, patience, and the quiet. Power of a woman who'd finally remembered exactly who she was before she'd become. Someone's supporting character, the story that would be told in boardrooms and business schools for years. To come wasn't really about revenge at all. It was about reclamation. And Victoria Ashford had reclaimed everything that mattered. Her dignity, her career, and most importantly, herself.